So, our next speaker, we all here marketers, those of you, have a common goal. First, to connect, and second, we're all looking for every ad channel, display, mobile, email, video. So you don't want to probably to miss any chance to increase your ROI. So if you want this, the next speaker is the right one to put a spot on and to listen carefully, because he will be sharing his knowledge and know-how about that. So please, warm welcome to Shane from Iponweb. Join us on the stage, please. Welcome on the stage. Thank you for being here. Do you have the clicker with you? I need a clicker, please. Every speaker takes a clicker away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Plamen. Once again, it's wonderful to be back in Istanbul. Thanks to you, to Daniela and the team for your warmest of welcomes this year. It's great to be back at Webit. So I work for a company called Iponweb, and I run commercial activities in the EMEA region. Last year, at this very conference, I spoke about a specific topic in relation to the programmatic marketing channel. And I spoke mostly about the challenge of access. So we're a company specializing in building media trading systems exclusively, more or less, for that programmatic channel. So whether you're buying media, selling media, manipulating data, so DSPs, SSPs, DMPs. If there's another three-letter acronym, we've probably built one. So on the right-hand side of the screen, this was my subject matter for last year's presentation. And this is how we address the challenge of connecting these systems, these tailored media trading systems, to the wider RTB ecosystem. This year, I'd like to speak about the systems themselves and the intelligence that lives inside these systems to drive performance, to drive reach, to effectively align the technology, these systems, with your business goals. So what do we believe at Iponweb? Well, we believe in a very core principle around data. We believe that data should drive not just your marketing strategy, but in effect, it should also drive the actual design of your technology system. So, in real terms, in a perfect world, we believe that every marketer or agency should completely control the technology they use to buy media. Now, we understand that that's not possible for everybody, but it's a philosophy we hold very, very, very dear to our hearts. And behind that philosophy is the idea that systems effectively should be operated on a single tenant basis. In other words, the technology you use should ultimately be used by nobody else. So a couple of reasons why we believe that data is very, very important to not just the end goal, but to the natural sort of conflicts, to avoiding the natural conflicts that exist within the media trading ecosystem, as it were. So let's take a look at sort of the differing goals depending on who you are and what your business is about. So if we look at where an agency is usually trying to get in the world of media buying, so it's typically about maximizing your margin along with reaching the goals which your customer has laid out for you. So your goal is typically to buy media at a price point at which you're fairly sure you can make decent margin. Now that may mean buying media at a CPM price point, but it also may mean driving more clicks if you're getting paid on click, for example. Now that's one direction in which a system, a technology, can actually sort of shift activity in your favor, so the buying activity. If you're a DSP technology, then the major concern that you have as a business is overhead in terms of how much does it cost me to scale my hardware fleet, but also achieve the objectives which my clients have laid out for me as a priority. So you're concerned with things like queries per second. You're concerned with how many additional cores, virtual cores in the cloud. Can I operate my business, but also keep my customers happy? So this is a kind of conflicting goal with, say, the typical goal of an agency looking to achieve a specific margin against a set amount of media which they intend to buy. If you're an advertiser, your goal is usually to drive performance, improve your reach, the quality of that reach, and generally to find new customers or reach your existing customers with a relevant message. Now that is also a conflicting direction for the technology. In other words, if we look at what influences the inner machinations of these systems in driving general media buying activity in one of those three goals, it generally comes back to data. And so when you saw the title of my presentation, you probably thought, not another guy banging on about data and how important data is in today's marketing. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint, but yes, data is exceptionally important. But it's important on a couple of levels, actually. And we at Iponweb see data as having a dual role in these programmatic media buying systems. So as these systems evolve and as the digitization of content continues unabated, the explosion of content, how can you ensure that the data you need to drive the technology in the direction of your business goals is actually under your control? So where does it live, this data? Well, there are two parts. There's the data which lives inside the machine itself, and there's the data which exists on the internet. So data about customers that you have, customers that you would like to have, customers that you had but lost. So that data exists, out there. It's very important to understand that with the advent of cloud computing, this challenge of access to the data which can very heavily influence the behavior of these technologies, the cost implication of accessing that and storing that data and manipulating that data has actually come down quite significantly. So back to the perfect world scenario. We build these systems exclusively on a single tenant model. Now we understand that the single tenant model is not possible for everybody. You may license a third-party technology already, which is doing a very good job. But you need to ask yourself the question, is the technology which I use today fully aligned, and will it continue to be fully aligned with my future goals? So we come back to data. Data as a designer. So what does this actually mean? If we take the classic purchase funnel, when we're reaching our customers or our prospective customers, we will use different types of data to reach them in a meaningful and relevant way, depending on where they are. So for example, if I'm looking to reach customers, if I'm looking to guarantee to show my message to customers or prospective customers, that's about quality traffic and good targeting. So it's more about the sort of short-circuit decisioning, the almost human input that these systems need in order to make sensible, wide-ranging decisions on how to serve ads. However, if I'm looking at finding new customers, the scope of that task is so huge that you need some kind of machine learning-driven component to do a good job there. So predictive or probabilistic modeling. And then if I'm looking to market to my known customers, to my existing customers to bring them back, that's remarketing or retargeting as we know it. Now, the second side of how data can be leveraged in these systems is really interesting, because if you allow the data to feed into the design of your system, whether you're building from the ground up or whether you're using a system that's flexible enough that affords you that flexibility to change how it serves ads, how it makes bid decisions, bid evaluation decisions in the programmatic channel. That system, if well enough designed, should then inform you on how to actually optimize your data. In other words, how to choose which signals that are out there of the ocean of signals about your customers you should be going after, and you should be looking to take back into your control. And this is a really crucial point. It's a point that is not discussed enough, to my mind, in today's industry. There's a data which you have and which you try to leverage. But where does it say that data is a static thing? Data is a constantly evolving tool which we need to continually plug back into the systems that we use to buy media. So a couple of our clients were kind enough to give us a few case studies. This is anonymized data, but this is a really good example of a customer we had operating in Eastern Europe who was ultimately trying to drive conversions for the e-tail sector. But a conversion for them wasn't a simple, purchase with a credit card. It was much more complex, much more composite than this. And so we helped this customer understand exactly what different types of conversions they were interested in achieving, but more to the point, which types of data did they need to onboard in their system to drive different types of conversions. So a first-time conversion was very valuable because they receive the customer information and they can build on that. But equally, loyal customers who had churned, began to spend less, this is a real problem for this business. And so we implemented a methodology called LTV, so lifetime value, and plug that information, the lifetime value information, which was stored offline by this e-tailer, into the buying machine. And so we had two things. We had the short-circuit decisioning, where if we knew the user, we would show them an ad, which was designed ultimately to bring them back into the buying environment. If we didn't know the user, then that fell more into the predictive modeling realm of things. So in other words, we need to make an intelligent decision about whether to bid more for this user based on attributes that we know about this impression which is available in real time. And so, to look at the graph here, you can see exactly the point at which the lifetime value information began to be assimilated properly by the system, by the bidder, in understanding what it took to both generate return users, but also to acquire new users at a lower price point. So ultimately, the CPA for this e-commerce advertiser really began to come down, while the number of conversions steadily grew. So predictive decisioning was a key aspect of the success for this customer. And this is really about the micro-style optimization, which, as I mentioned, individually sorts through the opportunities as they come through from internet content, the ad slot buying opportunities. Second customer here, this is a really interesting one because we have a customer in North America who unashamedly are an arbitrage network, effectively. They do an exceptional job for their clients. They constantly deliver against the KPIs set out. But they are a company ultimately whose singular business model is to find media, real media, at a cheaper price point. Deliver conversions, deliver clicks, whatever the goal might be. But ultimately, they make a margin on being able to sell that media at a positive margin. And so they ran an A/B test where they began to think about, well, could we change somehow our bidding strategy and actually buy at just a slightly cheaper price point? After all, we have almost an infinite supply of of media out there through the global bid stream, and what effect would it have if we did? And so they ran an A/B test with pretty much exactly the same goals. So there were a few goals, keep the CPA below X, the quality of traffic has to be, plus or minus this deviation in terms of what we consider to be real quality traffic, and deliver this number of conversions. So multi-parametric sort of goals or constraints, but ultimately we need to try and lower the cost of our media to generate higher margin. And so with their A/B test, they actually realized that, yes, they could change how the system was bidding and reduce the price point just by a few cents. And so over the course of a year, their savings were absolutely astronomical. Now, the variation here is 3 million, between 3 and 6 million. This was over several years, in fact, where they found that they could save between 3 and 6 million. Now, that was because they had different goals for different advertisers, different campaigns. But you can see the effect of real data being plugged into their bidding strategy. So multi-goal optimization. It's a terribly complex thing to actually serve a campaign with a flight against multiple goals and constraints. So ensuring that you actually spend the budget is a terribly complex task. So it's not just about finding the right data and plugging that data back into your system. You need to have systems which are advanced enough that can leverage this data in a really meaningful way, an effective way. The final case study was for a casual gaming mobile advertiser. So you can see the results here. So they again, just needed to lower their CPA. And they plugged in a very simple signal at sort of a certain 2 weeks into a 2-month campaign. And that signal was, do we know this user? And do we know if they have a credit card? So this wasn't necessarily a user that was a customer. They had information about users, a 1 or a 0 effectively, as to whether they owned a credit card and had used it online. And the effect you can see here is pretty impressive. So their CPA came down by a factor of 2. So in summary, data design technology. You should be looking at using your data to inform how your systems are built, and if not built from the ground up, how those systems can be flexible enough to change the inner workings. So the bidding strategies, the short-circuit logic, decisioning logic, segment targeting, reach targeting, and the signals, the input signals for your predictive models. If you don't have that flexibility, then you're really fighting a losing battle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane.